Welcome to the Rethink Leadership podcast with me, Jeremy Blaine, CEO of Performance Works International. This podcast is grounded in business, digital, workforce, and leadership transformation for our times. My aim is to initiate conversations with experts, leaders, professionals who've got a story to tell and who we can all learn from. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel or simply go to performanceworks.global to access all the episodes to date. I'm sure you'll find something of interest. My guest today is Jazz Cool, who is all about elevating human performance and impact. It's something Jazz knows a thing or two about. In the early 2000s, she raced around the world on a yacht, an experience that cemented the determination, performance mindset and positivity that uphold both her professional and personal integrity today. Jazz has more than 25 years' experience at the leading edge of performance, enabled by a coaching mindset. She conducts bespoke corporate training initiatives and provides team and individual performance coaching at all levels. Once described as the leader's coach, Jazz's extraordinary ability to ask the uncommon question is what sets her apart as a performance specialist. Alongside her professional coaching credentials, she is also certified in psychotherapy and counselling and is a qualified nutrition coach. We discuss what makes a high-performance mindset, what that means in reality, and how to make progress as a leader, or as an individual contributor. This episode is in aid of 1% for the Planet, to which we have made a donation as Jazz's chosen charity of choice, and you can find out more and get involved here, 1%fortheplanet.org. Let's hear more. Hello and welcome, Jazz, to this episode of the Rethink Leadership podcast. Please introduce yourself, your journey as a performance leader and coach, and tell us something about yourself that maybe not many people know.
Thank you, Jeremy. Thanks for having me. So I am a business owner. I'm also a performance coach. And I think the first part of what I am, being a business owner, is widely accepted that people understand what that is. But oftentimes I'll explain to people that I'm a performance coach and they'll have that scratchy head moment to go, what on earth is that? So I suppose by way of my introduction, I can sort of explain how I approach performance coaching. I started off life in financial services. I was in the city for a few years. And it was back in the bad old days when trading wasn't done with algorithms. It was done via trading desks and getting on phones with little Madonna mics and all of us scurrying around and trying to find and win business. And it turned out that I was quite good at that. I had an economics degree, so I was a graduate in economics, and I was pretty good at it. And I remember my boss at the time pulling me into his office and asking me why my numbers were so consistently good compared to the rest of the team. I hasten to add, Jeremy, at the time I was the only female in the division. So there were some veiled references that perhaps it was down to gender that I was getting more success than others. I didn't understand the phrase industrial tribunal, so I just went for something else, which was, I don't know, I just think I'm more nosy than other people, which was just the worst reference. But I hold on to it because I was more nosy than others. I wanted to understand my clients' appetite for risk, what they expected to see around the corner, what they were collaborating to get ready for what was coming around the corner, and how agile they were, and how they were looking to construct how they saw their business model. And I was having those questions sort of 5, 6, 7, 8 months before the trade even took place. So there was a relationship there. And I ended up training the interns that came to work on our trading desk. And I very much trained with them in the same way that I traded, which was I was just really nosy about individuals, what made people tick, what got them out of their pit in the morning to come to work. And I soon discovered that a lot of my success was coming out of helping others to really perform themselves and understanding what their drivers and their triggers were to make that happen. And I then segued into learning and development in the sales arena, then into leadership. And now I sit front and center as a performance coach, just working on getting the very, very best out of other people. And my business, or the business that I help co-found, Incool Company, supports that on a wider, more scaled perspective. To answer your question about what many people might not know about me, I competed many years ago in the round the world yacht race, and I was a watch leader for 11 months of my life in rather hairy conditions. So yeah, not many people know that.
Wow, I didn't know that either. Wow, that's incredible. What an experience. I'm absolutely sure that sounds like another podcast to me. So
Indeed.
we might have to come
Yeah.
back to that. So being nosy and timing is the key, it looks like here. It's the client is at the heart of what you did and do. It's understanding their needs before they even know they have it, and then you can come to
Yeah.
them with it clearly. And it sounds so simple, but boy, how many people probably in that environment that you're in were probably more self-driven than client-driven.
Very
Perhaps,
much so.
yeah, getting back to it. You mentioned your company, the Incool company. That's
Mhm.
all about elevating human performance and impact. So I'd like to get under the skin of that a little bit, if I may, and ask why you feel that's even more important now in the transformational times our leaders and individual contributors are navigating.
Yeah, so it's a fine question, certainly in the environment that we find ourselves in. Globally, we are in a period of digital transformation. We're coupled with a period of workforce transformation. And both of those things are going to affect the approach that we take as a business to reaching high performance or sustaining high performance. Digital transformation that we're seeing obviously is about how we do business, and workforce transformation is about who we're doing business with and how we do that together. And certainly what we're noticing that the changes that we're experiencing in those two domains are very much affecting culture. And ICC as a business, we support performance mindsets by cultural initiatives and development programs. But from the cultural initiative, how do you maintain a high performance culture when so much of our business is done in a much more digital space? How do you maintain a consistent high performance culture when oftentimes we're not collaborating as a team, certainly face to face? And those are two of the areas where we're really adding the cultural impact to that. The old hackneyed phrase of Peter Drucker, which is a good one, which is strategy eats culture for breakfast. I almost would reverse engineer it. It is that it's strategy eats culture for breakfast. We talk about culture eating strategy for breakfast, but yes, culture is important. But when you remove the ability for us to collaborate, reverse engineer it. Strategy, what you're paying attention to, is going to eat your culture for breakfast. And quite naturally, in the environment that we're in, it's inevitable that we're going to take more of an operational mindset, that we're going to be focusing on the numbers and the risk that's ahead. Yeah, we're all looking at a very, very different environment ahead of us. And so it's quite natural and inevitable that we will take more of an operational mindset. But as soon as we do that, we remove the ability to be a good leader. We remove the ability to really focus on what a high performing culture looks like. And I'm not for a second suggesting that we don't focus on the operational infrastructure and the financials. But if that's all we're focusing on, we're going to lose the opportunity to bring our people with us.
Yeah, and you mentioned digital layer as a potential barrier to that, or we're learning how to develop a high performance culture within that in the new normal that we're all operating in the different models. What other emerging barriers do you perceive that are there that might be different from the business landscape even 5 years ago?
Certainly processes. So there are a lot more layered processes involved now, and we do have some fantastic pieces of software that enable us to work in an optimum fashion. But often those processes can really shake out the human element. So that I'm definitely noticing, and we're noticing as a business, is a barrier to emerging high performance. Collaboration is another one. It's obvious, if we do have a remote workforce, we get together in these fantastic platforms, digital and virtual platforms. But that collaboration really needs to be reinforced by some good operational values with demonstrable behaviors about how we are going to collaborate together. That's about optimum performance, and that will come through how we collaborate. That's an emerging barrier right there. I had a client recently who had restructured their back to work policy as to how many days it was and how many people were going to be in the office at any one time. And there were a number of individuals who said, we now have this digital infrastructure where the platform helps us collaborate from wherever we are. So I don't see why we need to come into the office. And that was such a breaking point for this individual, that there were people who went, I don't see why we need to come into the office. So much had occurred that there was nothing office-based that was incentivizing anybody to want to be there or to inspire them to actually get more from being together. And I really do believe that that is going to be a major barrier for the future, is that collaboration piece. And the other one is communication. You know, we're very, very quick to communicate these days. How we suggest what we're communicating, the actual messaging, is the bit we need to pay attention to.
Oh, I'd have to agree with that. Really thinking about the message and how that can get lost in the digital environment. And of course, these digital is an enabler, or it can be a huge barrier if it's not the appropriate tech. It's not used in the right way. We've seen that in the past.
Yes.
So I really understand your point about it being cultural and it driving the right operational behaviors that do certainly accelerate it or even supercharge it at times, particularly when you can drive collaboration down to individual contributor level. And
That's
as
it.
leaders, let go a little bit. And just one quick supplementary question, just based on what you said there, Jazz. Do you still feel, though, that while we've got all of these tools and it can work very well, that from a performance and cultural perspective, it's still important to have that face-to-face touch point or not?
I really do. And I appreciate that doesn't necessarily need to be in the same room. But there is so much that can be delivered in a much more optimal, much optimized way. It's so much more productive when we are face to face, if that is the digital domain like we are now, or indeed literally sat in the same room. I don't think that there will ever be a substitute for that. And however good our AI gets, that's the one thing that is still going to make business turn quicker.
Yes, absolutely. That human element, as you so rightly referring to before. So I'm going to put you on the spot then now. In that case, when we consider that at the heart of this, performance is key in our
Yeah.
new normal, whatever the business model we have, what does high performance look like from a leadership perspective, and from a workforce perspective when we consider the next couple of years to 2025?
Okay, great question. So, what does leadership look like? What it doesn't look like is someone just delivering a message. What it doesn't look like is someone simply delivering on KPIs. And nerves will send us in that direction. So, strategically, we'll have a look at what we need to deliver just to survive. Because some organizations, a lot of organizations are in survival mode for obvious reasons. And it brings out this word resilience. We'll come back to that. But just to survive, if we're focusing on the operational issues, that as a leader is not going to get us to high performance. So what can they be doing? Yes, focus on those KPIs, but also focus on what everyone else is focusing on. And that's you. And rarely do we think about the shadow that we cast. When we're really, really busy and we can get that look and it translates into how we deliver the message, even if that is via Slack, email, everyone is focusing on how we look, how we sound, and the message that we're sending. And oftentimes when we are very busy, just in survival mode, trying to optimize our performance operationally, we forget about the optimized performance as a leader. And I always liken it to those absolutely awful programs on television, the reality TV programs where everyone gets followed around by a whole host of TV cameras. And we're watching their every move and every nuance. Well, that's absolutely what happens daily to a leader. It's just that it's their people doing that. How they respond, how they react, how they deliver the message. Do they look bought in? Are they aligned to the values? All of that I'm sensing through how you look, how you sound, the words that you use, the message that you send. And as leaders, that's the bit I would be paying attention to.
And any advice for the workforce?
Hmm. So with the workforce, there is we're creatures of habit. Humans are creatures of habit, and rituals and routines we like, and we like them for one reason, because they keep us safe. Even if we don't like what the thing is, at least we know what's coming, right? It makes us feel safe because we know what it is. And if we can have a consistent leader who makes us feel safe because we know what to expect, that's one good thing. But what about us as a team? How do we collaborate? How do we communicate among each other? What unwritten rules and laws really oscillate around our team and our own high performance culture? And I always talk about, it's not just what we stand for, but what we won't stand for. And being clear on that and being transparent about what feels right and what doesn't. And it comes back to really good, transparent communication. Open, honest, and direct. I've worked with teams that are way too honest, Jeremy. They're willing to air all the dirty laundry. So there is a little bit of tact in there, but being open, honest, and direct with each other in a trusting environment with that foundation of trust, to know that it's okay to tell people how I feel, what I need, what support's there.
Going back to what you said there, that what resonates with what you've just said is one of the first pieces of that response about thinking about the shadow we cast as leaders. I love that as a terminology. I think that really captures it. And the fact that you should think as if you're on reality TV, because you are. Even when you're not looking, people are looking at you, right? I think that's absolutely great around the comms, the messaging, how we look, how we sound. I couldn't agree more with you. And I expect that you work with many organizations and great, brilliant people who have done this. So I'd really like to pull out some examples and stories or individual cases that you might have that you can share that demonstrate what can actually be achieved with the right mindset behind what you're talking about there. A focus on the goals, the tasks at hand, and the performance we need to achieve.
Yeah, it's a good question to ask. So I'm going to take it back to KPIs. I think that's a good place to get to. Yeah. And a lot of people are quite used to being beaten by KPIs, things we beat each other around the head with. But where do they stop? Because in there is the word performance. So where does it stop? Does it just stop at the operational level? Or can we have a look at KPIs that are really, really positive about performance beyond just delivery? And I'm working with a client currently who, like many of us, is going through the peaks and troughs of the financial space that we find ourselves in. And of course, all eyes look to the numbers when things are getting a little bit gritty. And is that down to our casting? So our resourcing, how many people we've got on the bench? Do we look at slimming the bench down? It's such a sort of short-term approach to think that, but there are so many other things that they could be thinking about. And I posed the question, I said, what's the real reason here? What's the real purpose behind this? Do we know? And if it is to batten down the hatches and just ride it out in a sort of resilient type way until things get better again. Well, until when is that? When does that happen? Because last time I checked, uncertainty and unpredictability are not going anywhere. Change is ever present. And if we just hunker down and lean into the storm until the storm passes, then what? Congratulations, we've survived, slightly battle scarred, with mud spattered goggles, we've made it. But for what purpose? What's the why? And oftentimes I will ask business leaders that question, and they find it quite hard to get their mouth around the answer. Why are we doing this? And if it's as simple as keeping the shareholders happy, making profit, I'm still going to be asking why, right? For what reason? And it's very, very difficult to remain resilient, to really lean into the pain and the discomfort and the uncertainty. It's really hard to remain resilient if we don't understand what the purpose is. What are we actually trying to achieve? And once we can hold that and understand what that is, we can send that message to the rest of the team. And there may be some people that aren't aligned with that purpose, but arguably most of them will be, because it goes beyond our KPIs. It really is something way beyond that I can hang on to. And to look for positive KPIs among that. How do we know that we're working towards purpose? How agile are we? How do we have the ability to get out of the weeds and have that sort of 10,000 meter view on the business, to go, what are we actually trying to do? Or are we simply busy fools? And that's been a very powerful message for one of my existing clients when we talk about high performance, because they consider a performance mindset to be resilient. And then when you look at the word resilient, it's about being vigilant to the pluses and the minuses and being able to pivot. It's not just about toughing it out. It's just being a little bit clever, a little bit more agile, and staying on our toes. And I think that it's a really good piece of advice to all of us. What are we paying attention to?
Yeah, it's what resonates there is don't be busy fools. I like that, because we can lose ourselves in the detail, particularly if we look at the last couple of years, what we've been through. And I really agree with you that what are you working towards? What is that purpose? Your eyes have to be to the sky as much as your feet on the ground. Otherwise, you get bogged down and you're constantly looking down. You're not looking ahead. And of course, we've got still uncertainty and unpredictability ahead as we look to the next couple of years, where many organizations and leaders will be looking to accelerate not just growth, but actually their own transformational journey as a business and themselves. So I'd be interested to know where you're focused and your company, ICC, is focused as we look to those years ahead and supporting leaders, businesses and teams in those performance aspirations, potentially when it's uncertain and unpredictable.
Indeed. Look, we're in the business of developing the culture of high performance, and the culture of high performance is quite intangible. What is it? It's not something I can hold. It's not something I can eat. It's not something I can put in my pocket. The culture of high performance, how can you deliver that for us as a business when we're just busy surviving? And at ICC, we also pivot according to what our clients and what the market needs. And budgets do get tight, but budgets will always be released for when something is going to deliver value. And the areas that we find really deliver value at times like this is being able to get everybody together and energized and galvanized. And that could be with keynotes. It could be with seminars. It could be doing a cultural analysis, which is a little litmus test. It's a digital platform that we have where we have some software that will just tell you how you are performing against our 5 pillars of high performance. And those 5 pillars of high performance, you get those right, you are not going to go far wrong. And all of them are interconnected. So the first one is direction. Where are we going and why? The second is collaboration. Who are we going there with? And how optimized is it? The third pillar is communication. Surprise, surprise. How transparent we are in the level of our messaging. Pillar number 4 is agility. So how nimble we are. Are we on our toes? If not, why not? And the last one, probably the most defining foundation of all 5, is drive. How engaged are our people? How aligned with our purpose are our people? And drive will also encapsulate all of the topics that are very ever present right now. So mental, physical, emotional health.
Those 5 pillars, to me, sound very solid as the foundation to build on. And I'd love to end this, therefore, by asking you and putting you on the spot when we consider those 5 pillars, your top tips for those tuning in, saying, right, yeah, I'm absolutely bought in. I need to rebuild, or continue building my high performance leaders, my high performance culture, or high performance teams. How do they get started?
It's a beautiful question. Straightforward answer. You're only here once. So every day we have an opportunity to be just a little bit sharper, a little bit better than yesterday. And we talk about high performance, and that can be quite scary for some people. High performance is not some sort of crippling self-judgment and perfectionism, because that just leads to two awful emotions, which are shame and guilt. I haven't met my own expectations. What people can do to get started is to just, I'm only on here once, reverse engineer it. What do I want to achieve? And they don't need to be big, hairy goals, because that sometimes really does unsettle people. They're too big. I don't understand them. Really step into the arena of your own life and take a look around. What do you notice in that arena? What's the terrain like? What's the environment? What does it feel like? What's the landscape? What tools have you got? What are the crowd doing? Are they jeering or are they cheering? Who are your accomplices? Who are your opponents? What does it look like in there? Get in it. Have a look around. Feel it. Because so often as leaders and people, we're sat on the bus looking out of the window at our life and just traveling alongside it. So I would say, first and foremost, mindset of, what do I want to achieve? What do I look like? What's me on purpose? When I'm really paying attention, I've stepped into that arena. And then some of the things that I would pay attention to straight away is to consider examining your habits. Our habits are there to keep us safe. We understand that. But some of your habits will be helping you, and some of them will be stopping you, will be putting barriers in the way to you getting where you want to be and to be the person that you want to be. So examine your habits, the things that you feel comfortable with. And breaking habits, as we know, is hard, but every single step we take, however small, is still a step forward. And oftentimes we can look at breaking a habit and we set ourselves a goal that is so far away from where we are now. It's so far removed from the habit that we have that it's almost inachievable. And you know what? We prove ourselves right. We don't achieve it. So little steps, little milestones, put them in place, write them down, because the minute you write them down, it sets up a little memory trace. It also gives you something to tick off if you're that way inclined. Write it down, share it. Because the minute you share it with someone else, they care, hopefully, they'll support you, they'll check in with you. It makes you accountable to somebody else. And we're really good at showing up for other people. We're not always so good to show up for ourselves. So little milestones, write them down, share it. Don't go big, but have some. And then really look for the areas where perhaps you do feel uncomfortable, where you might fail, where there are still learnings. That's good. If you're succeeding all the time, you're never learning. So look for those opportunities where you do fail, where you do stumble and go, what have I just taught myself? What do I need to do differently next time? And the last thing that I would share as far as techniques are concerned, probably one of the most effective, it's a C word, is consistency. Our bodies respond really well to consistency because it starts to become routine. And if you can do something once and it's tiny and you do it again the next day and the next day and the next day, keep writing it down, keep logging it, keep tracking it. And suddenly that consistency starts to feel like routine. And then you can focus on something else. But get involved because nobody else is enjoying your life more than you. So you might as well have a good time.
Yeah, how beautifully put as well. And that start point of mindset that you talk about is so critically important. And the way that you put it, again, I can relate to that. Every day you've got the opportunity to be better than yesterday, but how many of us really think like that? But what a great way to go forward to then create those new habits, break old habits, habit stack. I think you reminded me of James Clear's Atomic Habits on that. So important within that. Create those milestones to share, experiment, fail a little bit, but learn and be a continuous learner. Fantastic stuff. And I'd like to thank you very much for joining us on this episode, Jazz. And I'm sure many listening will want to connect with you, get in touch, continue the discussion, find out more about the Incool company, and have a chat. So how do they get hold of you?
So all the usual handles. So LinkedIn, you'll find me as Jazz Cool, or more formally as Jane Cool. You can find In Cool Company on LinkedIn. So that's a good place to start. We also have the same portal on Twitter. We have the same handle as well on Instagram. Or you can go old school, and our website is incoolcompany.com. And it would be a pleasure to communicate further with your listeners and your viewers.
Well, thank you very much. No, it's the websites are now old school. You heard it here first, folks. Thank you very much for joining me, Jazz. It's been a great conversation. Lots of food for thought, particularly as we're ending one year and coming into the next refreshed to perform. Thank you.
You're very welcome, Jeremy.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Rethink Leadership podcast with me, Jeremy Blaine. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel or simply go to performanceworks.global to access all the episodes to date. We'll see you next time.